My name is Kyle Mao. This is a review of Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time, and I think I'm in a pretty unique situation to review this book because we've done over 1,100 overseas placements, placing overseas talent into businesses. So everything about this book is really kind of what we do, and he has 4 really good points and 4 points that I think need a little bit more nuance just so you can fully understand it as like a business owner of what exactly needs to get done in terms of actually getting that time back. So without further ado, here's the review. So a little bit of just kind of background story. My daughter is 4 years old. She just started playing soccer. And just Saturday, so this is 2 days ago, basically we went to soccer. I was up 7:30. She was up at 8:15. Soccer's at 10 o'clock. If you have young children or you've had young children of this approximate age, you know that means that's a process, so to speak. So, breakfast, we try to leave by 9:30, 9:40. Soccer for an hour, she wants a snack, she's hot, she wants to rest, go home, and then, by the time the 10 o'clock soccer's done and you're home, it's 11:30, and then we had some things we needed to do for the family. She needed a new hat, she needed to get some cleats, she needed, a few things at the sports store, and while we're at the sports store, since we're all out as a family, we, went to the grocery store, did a couple other small errands, looked around. Before you know it, it's 2:15, 2:30 when we're home and everyone's hungry, haven't had lunch, so you have lunch. Then I remember I sat on the couch and I watched F1 for maybe 45 minutes, qualifying, like maybe 50 minutes, probably skipping through some parts of it. Then we went to the pool. That was like 4 o'clock, 4:15. All of a sudden we're at the pool and my wife looks at me. She's like, it's already 5:30. I'm like, oh. And of course, I had planned to barbecue that night, so I go home, get there by 5:45, start the barbecue. The coals need to warm up. We made chicken wings; those are fast at least. By the time dinner's done, 7:15, maybe 7:30, and then daughter's bedtime is 8:30. And by the end of that day, you're tired as a parent. Like that's a lot of things going on. And I did the math, and I didn't do a single thing that needed to get done around the house. We just relocated countries. We've got some stuff that needs to be built. I have plenty of clothes that need to be organized. My office is built, but not completely. It's functional, you could say. So none of the stuff that I would do around the house got done, and yet it's not because I'm lazy. It's not because I don't work hard. It's not because I'm not capable. And here's the other thing is like on paper, that's a really good Saturday. Like present for the kid, sports, outdoor stuff, got some groceries, went swimming, did a barbecue, like out with the family morning to night. But the day was gone. And that's the trap, right? That's a great Saturday. The small stuff slid, always does. My wife needed her bike fixed last night on Sunday night so she could go for a ride. Small thing, did that. But all the other stuff didn't get done. And eventually, many people who are going to watch this, if you're a business owner, you're a founder, you know that the relationship with your spouse, like they love you and they hate you for owning a business and having that freedom. And there's not enough hours, and you'll pay for that in some way or another. And what I mean by this is that you push that thing, whatever it was, and eventually it becomes a problem that it's not done. And yet it's at the bottom of the to-do list because it seems so small. And yet the answer is not to start just getting up earlier and earlier. It's not sustainable in the long term. And I realized okay, we're in a new country, but I should be paying someone 10 to 15 bucks an hour to build this or build that or unpack this or whatever other stupid stuff that's on the list that I'm never going to get to. And that is kind of the principle of the book, buying back your time. So here's the 4 things I think it gets right. Number 1 is don't hire to grow your business, hire to buy back your time. And that's phrased correctly. So most people think about hiring kind of backwards. They wait till the company hits a certain revenue mark or a certain head count or a certain amount of growth, whatever it is they've made up in their mind to say, I'm going to hire someone now. They hire the horsepower to grow. He flips it and says, you don't hire to grow, you hire to take the low-value, soul-draining stuff off your plate, which is a very good point, which we will get to. Nobody in business that I know of, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, nobody got into business to file taxes or pay taxes. IRS are a bunch of crooks, don't even get me started on that. Or to deal with the paperwork or contracts. I'm dealing with a lawsuit right now. Or any of that other stuff. Like you built your business to bring whatever you wanted to do to the market, whether it's a service, whether it's a product. You built the business because you had a passion about that. You aren't passionate about paperwork and taxes and lawyers or any of that other stuff. So Dan puts a number on it, the buyback rate. Take what you earn in an hour and divide it by 4. That's what you should be willing to pay someone to take off your hands. So if your company does $1 million in revenue, you divide it by roughly, 2,000 hours a year, $50 an hour, like anything that is under than 15 an hour, give or take, $12.50, hire that out, right? That's it. But that's the thing, is I see founders and business owners all the time, they just sit on it for a year because they're waiting to need it, because they need to hit whatever this magical arbitrary number, head count, whatever it is, to actually make that hire. So the pain line. He describes the pain line as roughly $1 million a year in revenue or 12 employees, where your business demands more from you than you can give it in terms of like hours in a day. Like it's simply become too big to act for you to just handle it yourself. And of course, you can do it, maybe you can survive it for a period, but the real issue is psychologically. It starts to hurt more than it's worth. And that comes at a cost, which I don't think he really goes into much, which is that you start to sabotage. Like if you, for example, are coming up on Black Friday, and let's say you run like an e-commerce brand, you're coming up on Black Friday and you're like, I want to hit these sales goals, but you don't really, you're burnt out, you don't like the business, you're questioning whether you even want to continue, you're not going to have that same enthusiasm for building the campaigns or signing that next client or doing whatever it is that take. You start to sabotage your actions because it's more painful than the reward of actually getting it. So here's the one thing I would say though, is that you can hit that pain line, and it's arbitrary, right? $1 million in revenue, 12 employees. Those are just general guidelines. There's always nuance, but you can fly right past the pain line and have to come back down to earth. And this is what really I think can get founders and business owners, is that you hit it and you scream on past it. Maybe the team or the company, whatever is working right now, can survive that, but it can't sustain it. So you may not realize you hit this, it's an imaginary, it's in your head, right? The pain line. But you can fly past it and nothing can really change, but you just can't sustain it. And that you might not pay the price for like 6 months or a year. Like it might come back to get you later, but you don't see it at the time. And that's the most dangerous part of it. So that being said, 3 things happen, Dan Martell says, when you do one of these 3 things. You stall, you decide not to grow, which basically a business is always either growing or it's dying. So if it's not growing, it's dying. Like nothing is static in business. 2, you stall. Sorry, I already said that. You sabotage. So this is kind of what I was alluding to. You don't have the confidence, you sabotage your sales calls. So I guess he did kind of touch on this, but basically you shoot yourself in the foot, or you sell it. You dump the business to whoever's available, whoever's willing to take it off your hands. You don't do a good job of selling it because it's telegraphed that you're burnt out, that it's a nightmare, that you don't enjoy it. So you have to keep that in mind too, is that you are going to telegraph how you actually feel about the business when you go to exit it. So this is actually a really good quote. If the business depends fully on you, you don't own a business, you own a job. It's the worst job in the world because you're working for a lunatic. Like that's really true. Then he goes into the 5 time assassins and then the definition of done. And I think this one is really useful. I use it all the time. So now here's the interesting part of the video. Here's the 4 things it gets wrong. And obviously I understand that it's a book, and it's a book that's reached thousands, maybe millions of people. So it's not all black and white, and it can't possibly cover all bases. But the thing that I kind of looked at was that a lot of things that, like it doesn't see the next problem around the corner. So the first one is like audit your time, and this makes perfect sense on paper. To figure out what you need to buy back in terms of your time or hire or delegate or whatever it is, you need to first figure out where the time is going. So the first thing the book says is basically for a week on a piece of paper or whatever, like log everything that you do at the exact moment and figure out what gives you energy and what you hate doing. Because the stuff you hate doing is the stuff you want to get off your plate, taxes, paperwork, etc. But nobody finishes it. I've given this, I have some modified ones that I've built over the years that I've used myself, and I've given when people come on a call and say, I want to hire an assistant. I say, okay, do this first, or do this at least in the first week. But it just almost never gets done. I would say the number of people who actually complete a good time audit is probably 10%, give or take. And of course, yes, you should buckle down and do it. And obviously the book assumes that you're going to get it done, but most people don't, because it's one of those things that's at the bottom of the task list. Like, it doesn't matter. And here's the irony, is that if you hired a good executive assistant who is actually going to take stuff off your plate, the first thing they would do, or a good EA would do in their first week, is actually go and audit your time and say, where did you spend all this time? Where did this hour go? How long did this take? What can I take off your plate? What else can we delegate? So the one person who would actually probably do the best time audit is the person you're trying to hire, which you don't do until you finish the time audit. Yeah, a good EA is going to pin you down. And then here's the other thing, the processes. So I think that in the book, and he said, I think he even uses the word camcorder, which is obviously a pretty dated term at this point, but basically to build SOPs, a lot of people say, like, I can't hire yet, I don't have an SOP, but you're not a big corporation. Like, you're not McDonald's. You don't have a fry machine where somebody like has to do the fries perfectly, or it doesn't meet standard, or they burn their head off, or whatever it is. You just need to put something onto paper, and then you could have the person or yourself refine it. So all you really need to do to make a good SOP is go record yourself doing it, maybe 2 or 3 times. I found that's pretty effective. And you take the transcript from the Loom and you feed it to an AI. And if you've really got your act together, you have a dedicated operational AI where you've put in other documents so it understands what you expect, what your voice sounds like, everything else. And that's all you really have to do. You give the 3 examples, you give the transcript to an AI, it's going to spit out a better SOP than most people are going to write, or that you're probably capable of writing, and you just go and you give it to them. And then if it's really off for some reason, you talk to that person. You say, okay, what needs to be changed about this process or this document? You ask them to refine it. The next one, and this is one of those situations where it's a book, right? So it assumes things, but the replacement ladder isn't fixed. It's going to depend on the business. So the sequence given to hire is admin, delivery, so fulfillment, then marketing, then sales, then leadership. So admin for sure, this is the stuff that none of us entrepreneurs like doing, and leadership obviously last. I would disagree with these 2, and potentially this. So it depends what it is. Depends on your business. Let's say you really like doing the fulfillment. It is a bottleneck, but maybe you don't do it second. Let's say you hate sales, but you actually love, like in my case, it would be the recruiting part of my business. And I actually do like recruiting. I like interviewing people. I like looking at resumes. So while it's the most time intensive, you also need to judge what it is. So for example, if you're a plumber, then I'm guessing you're probably not that enthusiastic about cleaning toilets or plumbing toilets. So of course you would outsource delivery first. But the part I really disagree on is marketing and then sales. A book has to generalize, and sales can be extremely time intensive depending on what it is. If you need to do a lot of outbound messages, for example, you run like a services business, you might be making 100 cold calls a day. That's incredibly time intensive, and you can hire someone for $10 an hour to make those calls for you, or sending, personalized emails or LinkedIn connections, whatever it is. It's very time intensive. Whereas marketing, kind of depending on what you do for marketing, you're probably not screwing with your ad campaigns that often. Like, you're going to try to find a winner and you're going to let it run, and you might go in and you might modify them every week or so, but it's tough to do. And marketing is kind of an art. I've always found it like probably one of the most difficult things to outsource. Content too, like if you're the face of the business, you can't just outsource that. It's very difficult. The style, you can give a video editor an SOP with use this font or use these type of animations, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, the actual soul and heart of the marketing can sometimes be very, very hard to replace. But of course, it all depends on the business. So if you run a business that needs heavy outbound, that's a 20-hour-a-week job, honestly. Writing messages, keeping the CRM up to date, managing the reps. Marketing, you might only touch once a week. Let's say you run an e-commerce brand. Delivery, you can hire a 3PL and they put all your product in the warehouse and they ship it to the customer. So of course that's the first thing that you outsource, so you're not packing the boxes yourself. I had an olive oil company at one point, so I'm well versed in this. Service business, delivery is the product. It's labor intensive, like I said. It might be the first thing. Run a software thing. A software company. Like the thing that's drowning you might be the support tickets, which means customer service. That would be admin, obviously. But if you run a local business, say a clinic, a chiropractor, dentist, doctor, like you're probably not outsourcing the delivery. People are coming to you for you because you're a good chiropractor. You can't necessarily hire someone and have the same magical hands, so to speak. So the first hire for probably 95% of businesses is going to be the admin, but it's not black and white. One size does not fit all. Next, and this is what I would say is probably the biggest one, is one hiring process for every hire. And what I mean by this is he talks about the test first method, which means like do a video application, an assessment, a paid trial or a paid test, and then you hire the winner, so to speak. It works really well if you are fishing in an ocean, but as you go up the rung, and obviously this book is written really for people that are hiring like rung one, admin, but as you go up, if you're looking for, say, a senior leadership member of your team and you are really picky and you have certain requirements and you are trying to keep the budget down or whatever it is, that ocean of candidates slowly becomes a lake, then it becomes a pond, then it becomes a puddle, and then it becomes a little speck of water. And then the same thing doesn't apply, because then you have to be selling harder to the candidates. When you only have 100 people worldwide who are a good fit for your role, you don't get to start demanding Loom videos and cognitive tests and all these other things. Like you can, but it makes that ocean shrink more rapidly. Now, if you're hiring an admin, you're hiring a virtual assistant for $10 an hour, yeah, you get your pick. Everyone has to jump through your hoops. If they don't, screw them, move on to the next. Like, I get it. That works totally fine. But it's not one size fits all. You can't do that for every role. And the more specific you are, the more loosey-goosey you need to be on the actual hiring process. And I'm not saying hire someone just because, but expecting someone for a highly in-demand role where you have very specific requirements means that other people have the same requirements, which means you can't ask them to jump through all those hoops. Okay, so like I said, how much friction you're allowed to demand depends entirely how many fish are in the water. So let's see, the next thing. Oh, like someone with an audience like Dan Martell has, he has millions of followers, right? So he gets his pick of anybody. It doesn't matter. Like he has that gravity, but most people are not going to. So if you are a company that people don't want to work at, you also don't have that for you. So I always tell people, like, you need to become a place where people want to work if you want to attract the best people. If you're, how do I phrase this nicely? I can't, so I'm not even going to try. If you're a loser and your company sucks, like you're going to attract losers. It's that simple. Both sides of the table are deciding. You don't go to Walmart and buy candidates, really. I mean, some job boards basically are like that, but you don't really just walk into the store and pick something off the shelf. It doesn't work that way. It's another human being on the other side of the table. You probably don't have the same audience and poll. Like, that's what I'm getting at. Let's see. So just the last example. People will just say, like, oh, just hire an assistant. Well, but do you want a good assistant? Like, are you offering something that a really good assistant would actually want? Do you have a good environment? Is it exciting? Is it fast paced? Like, you want an A player? Are you an A player? Or do you have an environment where an A player gets to contribute and feel like they're making a difference? All of these things matter. It sounds mumbo jumbo, like, and I sound like an AI, like a healthy environment where people can contribute. But like at the end of the day, it's just like, do people want to freaking work for you? Do they like your company? Like, do they want to be there? It's really what it comes down to. Last thing, he mentions like having a test, and you really need to cater the test to whatever it is. And so what I mean by this is that you should never give like a sales rep a take-home test. Don't say like, here are 5 scenarios, go home and practice them and then come back to me. No, on the interview, you do a mock call right there on the spot, because as in a sales role, they don't get to go home for 24 hours and think about what to say. Whereas an admin or an assistant, like how often do you need them to like actually respond in 10 minutes? Probably not that often. So using AI, taking something home, having a few hours to think about it would be a more accurate representation of their day. And finally, it doesn't talk at all about the chain. And what I mean by the chain is that, let's say, for example, that you want to start making videos for your company. My content is great. It definitely helps business in almost every case. But it's not just as simple as like turn on the video. Well, actually it is, because this is just a camera, an iPhone. That's all it is. I have this headset tucked into my pocket as a microphone. I just moved countries. So I'm getting a break here. But what I'm getting at is that a lot of people won't just hit record. First, they need a decent mic, then they need software, then the lighting because it looks bad, blah, 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 figuring out where it goes, the workflow to upload, whatever else. So you have this goal, which is make video, but what it doesn't break down is all the little goals that come before it. So that block list is not necessarily, that's sometimes harder to solve because you can hire a really good assistant and you can say, buy me some good lighting and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's probably you who's going to be in the office tweaking the settings and figuring out the colors and calibrating the microphone, you know, unless obviously you have someone in person, that's a different conversation. Or let's say, for example, you just want a simple page up to sell something new, except you got to buy the domain and set up the hosting. Like, so that's the point. This seems like a simple task, but someone like an assistant may not have the knowledge to do all of this, which means you figure it out, which means you don't actually delegate it. I mean, obviously you can for sure find someone who can figure all this out, but it's never as simple as just get the website up. So that takes then days and it's still not up. This is death by a thousand cuts. Every founder, every business owner always loses days where you're like, what did I actually, like, I had this very simple thing I wanted to get done and it just didn't get done. So the real price is what doesn't happen. The sales page doesn't go up, the content doesn't get made. It's not just the 30 minutes of admin. It's not as simple as buy back the 30 minutes the task eats, because if it's a $10 an hour admin who can't get the job done, then it's the opportunity cost. So buy back the work the task was blocking. So you might have to spend more money and get someone more capable. It's not as simple math as like, oh, this task is always $10 an hour because if something else needs to get done, you get where I'm going with this. Yeah. Last thing, the perfect week. Basically, the book says like block your entire week in advance, hour by hour, adhere to it, like, you know, like gospel. And for some people that works really well. Other people it doesn't. I've never seen anyone disagree with that. Most people will say like this really works for me, or they understand that it does not work for some people. So what I try to do is I try to get my 4 hours a day of good work. That's usually in the morning, and then I try to put off all the other stuff till the afternoon. And every week I basically go and I write down, I have my paper right in front of me here, like what matters this week. And I put a maximum or 3 or 4 things, and then I try to break those down into tasks for the week. And so every day I literally write things I must do on Monday, and then I write those out based off of the week goals. And I try to not put too many on there, because if you put too many on there and you just fail at them, then you just feel shitty about yourself. And you have to go and do it again anyway. So, here's what I'll say. The shape of the pattern on the 4 things I've pulled out here, obviously, like I said, it's a book, and it's a good book, but they all kind of go a step deeper. So if you never do the audit, which my data shows me that people usually don't, then what good does it do? The SOP, he tells you to record, but not how to actually complete and hand off. So the ladder of hiring that may not fit your business, and then of course the hiring gauntlet. I mean, his is fairly tame, I would say, but it depends on the hire, obviously. Not everyone's going to be willing to do that. You might lose some good candidates. The principle is named, but the real problem can come from that. And again, maybe there's a second book coming that goes into this, but that's where a lot of people, if you read the book and you say like, well, this all sounds really good, be aware that there's a good chance you're also going to hit these barriers as you go on and you try to delegate and you try to buy back your time. Like I said, it's a good book. Maybe one of the better ones as far as time management, productivity, I would say, really. But it can't look at your business. Again, it's a book. It can't look at your business. It can't tell you what you really like and what you really hate. And people actually struggle naming what's really valuable for their own business. What I mean by that is you can say like, I think this is valuable, but the numbers might tell you otherwise, and you are so in the business and so biased that it's actually hard for you to fully admit that, I would say. Yeah, so in any case, it's a good book. I would recommend it. And there's just some things that you should be aware of if you're a business owner, you're a founder, and you're really trying to get some of these hiring things right. It's never as simple. Like if I could leave you just with one point, it's never as simple as just hire a good assistant. I know this because I've been through a few assistants myself. I know this because I've watched hundreds of other people hire assistants, admins, managers, operations. It's never as simple as just hire the right one, and you can't always make the assumption that you have this giant pool to fish out of. And again, last thing, if you're not a place where people want to work, then you're not going to attract good people. So in any case, this is what we do. I can help you diagnose all of this, or someone on my team can help you diagnose all of this. So go to hire-ua.com, book a call if you are actively hiring or want to chat about getting some time back in your business and your life. Like I said, good book, go read it. Just be aware, there's obviously more nuance that a book can't explain.